What I'm about to share with you will sound absolutely impossible, but I swear on everything sacred that this truly happened. 3 days ago on October 1st, I experienced the most spiritually devastating encounter of my entire life. Jesus Christ himself appeared to me in my trailer on the set of The Chosen and revealed 4 specific events that will unfold before this month ends. What he showed me wasn't just glimpses of the future, but urgent warnings about supernatural occurrences that will shake the very foundations of our world. That I'm still trembling as I record this message. My hands haven't stopped shaking since that night. And honestly, I've debated whether to share this adl because I know how it will sound, but the message wasn't meant only for me. It was for you wherever you are right now listening to these words. Before I begin, please tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is in your location. I need to know I'm not speaking into an empty void. If what you're about to hear moves your spirit, please subscribe and hit that notification bell. Your support gives me the courage to speak these truths, no matter how impossible they might seem. My name is Jonathan Roumie, and for the past 6 years, I've had the extraordinary privilege of portraying Jesus Christ in The Chosen. You might think that playing the Son of God would prepare me for supernatural encounters, but nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing, could have prepared me for what happened 3 nights ago in my trailer in Texas. We'd been filming for 14 hours straight. The cast and crew were exhausted, and I was spiritually drained in ways that only those who've carried this role can understand. Playing Jesus isn't just acting. It's a spiritual battle that wages war on your soul daily. Some mornings I wake up feeling unworthy to even put on the costume. That Tuesday night, I returned to my trailer around midnight, completely depleted. The day had been particularly challenging, filming the crucifixion scenes, and I felt hollow inside. I sat on the edge of my small bed, staring out the window at the Texas landscape, when suddenly the temperature in the trailer dropped dramatically. Not from air conditioning, but something far more profound. The presence that filled that small space was unlike anything I'd ever experienced. The very air seemed to vibrate with holiness, and I knew immediately that I was no longer alone. When I looked up, Jesus stood before me, but this wasn't the Jesus I portray on screen. This was the risen Christ in all his glory, radiating a love so intense it brought me to my knees. His appearance was both familiar and otherworldly, taller than I'd imagined, with eyes that held the depth of eternity and the tenderness of perfect compassion. His voice, when he spoke my name, carried both the authority of the Creator and the gentleness of the most loving friend. "Jonathan," he said, and immediately I fell face down on the trailer floor, weeping uncontrollably. "Rise, my beloved. I have chosen you to carry a message that must reach my people before this month ends." I managed to whisper through my tears, "Lord, I'm just an actor. I'm not worthy to receive visions." His smile was like dawn breaking over the darkest night. Worthiness was never the requirement, my son. Love is. As I struggled to my feet, still trembling, Jesus continued, "What I am about to show you will challenge everything people believe about how I work in the world. For events will unfold before October ends. Each one serving as both warning and invitation. The first will come in just 5 days." The trailer seemed to dissolve around us, and suddenly we were standing in what appeared to be a vast spiritual observatory looking down upon the earth, but this wasn't the physical planet we see in photographs. This was Earth as it exists in God's eyes, with every prayer rising like streams of light and every act of rebellion casting shadows across the landscape. "Look toward the ancient lands," Jesus said, pointing toward what I somehow knew was the Middle East. "On October 9th, my people will discover something that has been hidden beneath Jerusalem for nearly 2,000 years." The vision unfolded before me like a divine movie. I watched as archaeologists working near the Temple Mount made an unprecedented discovery. Deep beneath layers of earth and stone, they uncovered a chamber that had been sealed since the 1st century. Inside this chamber were artifacts that would shake the academic world to its core. They will find the burial cloths of Lazarus, Jesus explained, along with written testimonies from those who witnessed his resurrection, but more than that, they will discover physical evidence of my own crucifixion and resurrection that no scholar will be able to dispute. I saw scrolls bearing the seals of Roman officials documenting events that aligned perfectly with the gospel accounts. There were personal belongings of the disciples, items that carried supernatural properties even after 2 millennia. Most remarkably, there were fragments of the actual cross, still carrying residual power that would cause miraculous healings just from proximity. This discovery will divide the world, Jesus continued with an expression of both joy and sorrow. Those whose hearts are prepared, will fall on their knees in worship. But others, especially those who profit from keeping people away from truth, will rage with unprecedented fury. They will attempt to suppress the findings, discredit the archaeologists, and flood the media with lies and alternative explanations. As the first vision faded, I felt the weight of this revelation settling into me spirit. An archaeological discovery that would provide undeniable proof of Christ's ministry and resurrection would change everything. It would remove every excuse for unbelief and force even the most stubborn skeptics to confront the reality of Jesus Christ. But Jesus wasn't finished. His expression grew more solemn as he prepared to reveal the second event. What you will witness next will be painful to watch, but necessary for what's coming. Between October 15th and October 20th, I will allow a great shaking to come upon those who claim to serve me. The spiritual observatory around us shifted, and I found myself looking down at churches and ministries across the globe. What I saw broke my heart and filled me with righteous anger simultaneously. Prominent televangelists, pastors of churches, and religious leaders who had built empires on false promises were about to face divine exposure. I watched it as financial crimes, moral failures, and doctrinal heresies that had been hidden for decades suddenly came to light in rapid succession. This is not punishment, Jesus said, sensing my distress. This is purification. My house must be cleansed before the final harvest begins. I witnessed pastors being arrested, their stealing and manipulation finally brought into the daylight. Massive church organizations split apart as congregations learned their leaders had been teaching prosperity over truth, success over sacrifice. But amid this chaos, I also saw something beautiful emerging. Small groups of genuine believers hungry for authentic relationship with God began gathering in homes, parks, and community centers. These weren't discouraged by the exposure of false shepherds. Instead, they were energized, finally free to pursue the real Jesus without the distraction of corrupt leadership. The vision showed me how this purification would create space for authentic revival. As the false fell away, the true would shine brighter than ever before. Believers who had been sitting in pews, passively consuming religious entertainment, suddenly became active participants in God's kingdom work. Those who survive this shaking, Jesus said with divine pride, will be the Anisius in the days ahead. They will be purified gold, refined by fire, ready to carry the weight of supernatural authority. As the second vision concluded, I could sense that something even more extraordinary was about to be revealed. The atmosphere around us crackled with anticipation, and Jesus' expression took on an intensity that made my spirit tremble with both excitement and holy fear. The third event, he said, his voice carrying a power that seemed to shake the very foundations of reality, will affect every person on earth, believer and unbeliever alike. It will be a sign in the heavens that no one can ignore, explain away, or dismiss as coincidence. The spiritual observatory expanded around us, giving us a panoramic view of the entire solar system. My breath caught in my throat as I witnessed something approaching from the depths of space that defied every law of physics I understood. On October 24th, Jesus continued, his voice resonating with cosmic authority. A messenger off-light will position itself between Earth and the Moon for exactly 47 minutes, this celestial visitor carries within it the very breath of heaven. What I saw approaching wasn't a comet or asteroid, this was something composed entirely of brilliant white light moving with intelligence and purpose toward our planet. As it drew closer, I could see that it pulsed with a rhythm that seemed to match the heartbeat of creation itself. During these 47 minutes, Jesus explained, the spiritual atmosphere surrounding Earth will be charged with supernatural power. The veil between the physical and spiritual realms will become so thin that even children will begin to see angels walking among them. The vision unfolded with breathtaking clarity. I watched as the celestial messenger took its position, and immediately the effects on Earth were profound. People across every continent began experiencing supernatural encounters simultaneously. In hospitals, terminally ill patients were receiving instantaneous healings. In prisons, hardened criminals fell to their knees as divine love penetrated their hearts. But what struck me most powerfully was how this event affected children. I witnessed young ones across the globe suddenly demonstrating gifts of prophecy, healing, and spiritual discernment that amazed their parents and teachers. A 6-year-old girl in Brazil laid hands on her blind grandmother and watched her sight return. Twin boys in Nigeria began speaking in languages they'd never learned, delivering messages of comfort to grieving families. The innocent and pure in heart will be the first to receive these gifts, Jesus said with overwhelming joy. Their faith, untainted by doubt and religious tradition, creates perfect vessels for my power to flow through. However, not everyone responded positively to the supernatural visitation. I observed that those who had hardened their hearts against God experienced intense discomfort during these 47 minutes. Some became violently ill, others flew into inexplicable rage. Many simply fled to dark places, desperately trying to escape the penetrating light. This celestial sign will serve as missional invitation, Jesus continued with both love and urgency in his voice. Those who open their hearts during this visitation will receive an impartation of spiritual gifts that will equip them for what comes next. But those who reject this offering will find their hearts growing even harder. As the third vision began to fade, I felt my consciousness straining under the weight of these revelations. But Jesus placed his hand on my shoulder and immediately strength flowed through my entire being. There is one final event you must witness, he said, and his tone carried an urgency that commanded my complete attention. The fourth occurrence will be the most significant of all, for it will determine the eternal destiny of multitudes. The spiritual realm around us transformed once more, and I found myself standing on what appeared to be the highest mountain imaginable with a view that encompassed the entire globe, but this wasn't merely a physical perspective. I could see into the hearts and souls of people across every nation, every culture, every walk of life. Beginning October 28 and continuing through the end of this month, Jesus began, I will personally visit individuals across the world in ways that cannot be explained or denied. Not through intermediaries, not through dreams or visions alone, but face-to-face encounters that will leave no room for doubt. What I witnessed next challenged everything I thought I knew about how God operates in the modern world. Across the globe, ordinary people were receiving supernatural visits from Jesus himself. These weren't public spectacles or mass gatherings. They were intimate, personal encounters happening in the privacy of homes, workplaces, and even in the most unlikely locations. I watched a Muslim businessman in Cairo sitting alone in his office when suddenly the room filled with divine presence. Jesus appeared to him with such overwhelming love that the man immediately understood his need for salvation despite never having heard the gospel preached. In Tokyo, a successful atheist scientist working late in her laboratory was confronted by the risen Christ. The encounter was so undeniably real that she abandoned her research and began weeping for forgiveness on the spot. Similar scenes were unfolding simultaneously across every continent. A Hindu priest in Mumbai, a Buddhist monk in Thailand, a secular university professor in London, a cartel leader in Mexico. People from every religious background, and none at all were receiving personal visitations that would transform their lives forever. This final harvest will not depend on human evangelism or church programs, Jesus explained with divine satisfaction. I myself will appear taught those whose hearts I have prepared. The gospel will be preached to every nation, tribe, and tongue through supernatural encounters that bypass all human limitations. But these visits weren't limited to unbelievers. I witnessed Christians who had grown cold in their faith receiving wake-up calls that reignited their passion for God with unprecedented intensity. Pastors who had been going through the motions for years found themselves face to face with the living Christ, leading to radical transformation in their ministries. The speed of these conversions astounded me. Unlike traditional evangelistic efforts that might take months or years to see results, these supernatural encounters were producing immediate and complete life changes. Corporate executives were abandoning lucrative careers to serve in missions. Entire families were being restored overnight. Communities were being transformed as the revival spread from person to person like holy wildfire. This global awakening represents an infinite act of mercy. Jesus said with emotion that brought tears to my eyes. It is the last call before the door closes forever. Those who respond during this window will become my end-time army equipped with supernatural authority to minister in the chaos that follows. However, I also saw the resistance that would arise. False prophets began performing counterfeit miracles to confuse people. Government officials in certain nations attempted to suppress testimonies and arrest those sharing their experiences. Religious leaders who felt threatened by this grassroots movement spoke out against it, claiming mass hysteria. My true followers will know my voice, Jesus assured me. When people have genuine encounters with me, they become broken over their sin, humble in spirit, filled with love for others, and desperate to share my gospel. Any supernatural experience that produces pride, division, or draws attention to the messenger rather than does not come from heaven. As these visions concluded, I felt the enormous weight of responsibility settling upon my shoulders. Jesus looked at me with infinite compassion and divine authority. "Will you tell them what you have seen?" he asked. Through my tears, I whispered, "Yes, Lord." "But who will believe me?" "You are not responsible for convincing anyone," he replied with gentle firmness. "Your task is simply to deliver the message faithfully. The Holy Spirit will confirm the truth to those whose hearts are prepared to receive it." As Jesus began to fade from my sight, the trailer slowly materialized around me again. But his presence lingered, and his final words echoed in my spirit with such intensity that I knew my life would never be the same. "Tell them," he had said, "that these 4 events are not meant to bring fear, but to awaken faith. They are my love letters to a world that has forgotten how to listen for my voice." I sat there in stunned silence for what felt like hours, trying to process everything I had witnessed: the archaeological discovery on October 9th, the church purification between October 15th and 20th, the celestial messenger on October 24th, and the global visitations beginning October 28th. Each event was burned into my consciousness with such clarity that I could recall every detail as if I were still experiencing the visions. But what struck me most profoundly was the urgency in Jesus' voice when he spoke about timing. This wasn't a distant future prophecy. These events would unfold within days and weeks of our encounter. The first sign would manifest in just 5 days from when I'm recording this message. Over the past 3 days since that encounter, I've been wrestling with whether to share this publicly. Who would believe that an actor portraying Jesus had received actual visions from Christ himself? The skepticism would be immediate and harsh. But every time I've considered staying silent, I feel his presence again, reminding me that obedience matters more than reputation. what gives me confidence to speak is how this revelation aligns with other reports I've been receiving. Since The Chosen premiered, countless viewers have written to me describing their own supernatural encounters, prophetic dreams, and spiritual awakenings. It's as if the Holy Spirit is preparing the global church for something unprecedented. Just yesterday, Dallas Jenkins called me after receiving similar accounts from 3 different cast members. Each had experienced unusually vivid spiritual encounters during our recent filming. Elizabeth Tabish described a dream where she saw multitudes of people from every nation falling to their knees simultaneously. George Harrison shared how he'd been awakened at 3 a.m. for 7 consecutive nights with an overwhelming burden to pray for global revival. Friends, I've shared what Jesus revealed to me about these 4 events coming this month: the archaeological discovery on October 9th, the church purification between October 15th and 20th, the celestial messenger on October 24th, and the global visitations beginning October 28th. Whether you believe my testimony or not, I urge you to watch and pray. Prepare your hearts for what's coming. Share this message with someone who needs to hear it, because time is running out and eternity hangs in the balance.